like to welcome Blaine from Earnnest. He is going to be going through the demonstration today. If you have any questions at any point, please feel free to type it in the chat. Blaine will also stop periodically to check to see if you have questions. So when he does that, if you want to unmute yourself and ask the question, that's fine. We will be monitoring the chat, though, if you have any other questions you want to put in there. Without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Blaine. Thank you, Blaine.
Hey, thank you so much, Tim, and really a pleasure to be with everyone today. As Tim alluded to, normally I have a wingman or wingwoman with me, and today that is not the case. COVID has hit the team pretty hard here in Greenville, South Carolina, so we are running at about half strength. So I'll be doing this by myself, which is just great. However, I may not be as quick on the chat responses as we normally would be. So Haley, I really appreciate if you see anything that I'm missing, don't hesitate to either stop me, or even if you do think you know the answer, that'd be great to have you hop in there too. But no pressure, we will get to all your questions. Earnnest was formed in 2017 by real estate agents. It's kind of what makes us unique within the industry. There's a lot of folks in the fintech world trying to securely move earnest money, and Earnnest staked its reputation right away on doing this securely in a way that would actually help agents in their business flow. You know, one of the things we found out very quickly, no two agents do business the same way. So we realized that we needed to build products that would, work for phone apps, work for desktop apps, but also be exactly where agents were already working. And out of that was born very early on our integration in dotloop. So I'm not going to talk too much about our dotloop integration initially. I'll let our CRO Russ do it by way of our video recording. So I'll go ahead and share my screen, and I'll show you guys our dotloop partner page, and we'll kick this meeting off that way.
The real benefit of using a product like dotloop is collaboration within the loop, not just between agent and client, but across the agent's team. So having a consistent experience where everyone is notified of a transaction, where all of that lives within the loop around the payment, is absolutely critical. Traditionally, earnest money can be collected a number of ways. The home buyer going to their bank and wiring funds to escrow, the collection of certified checks, cashier's checks, personal checks. And really the problem with those things is they're time intensive, they're expensive, they're offline, so the communication is not all happening in one place where everyone has visibility into it. And along the way for all of that, that's really where fraud can creep in. And when communicating around wiring instructions, the handing over of a personal check that has critical information on there, account routing details, you're just hoping that it gets to the right place. So it's time intensive, and it's really that window for fraud to come into the transaction. If I'm a real estate agent in a brokerage and I'm evaluating a digital earnest money partner, a few of the things that I'd be looking for: simplicity of use. Is it a tool that, if I'm an agent, that fits in my workflow? If I'm a brokerage, is it something that I think my agents are going to be able to adopt? And really, when you look at adoption of agents of new tools, one of the ways we've seen to really increase that is making sure it's within their workflow today. And that's what we love about our integration with dotloop. This is not some new tool they need to start using, another login and password they need to know. It's right there in the loop and really easy to use as a feature and not a new product. Security is critical here, right? The prevention of fraud, as it's been on the rise the last 3 years, it's really critical as a real estate agent that whatever you're bringing to your client is going to benefit them, not put their life savings in jeopardy. Safety and security is at the core of everything we do at Earnnest. How we build our product, how we train our teams, how we interact with our customers, all around making sure that the funds always get to where they need to go, which to date, 0 instances of fraud for all transactions that occur with us. That's the most important part. One of the best aspects of Earnnest integration in dotloop is that it saves real estate agents time. Right there at the top of the page, they can click to send an earnest money request. Details from the loop are pre-populated into that request. On average, an agent's able to complete that entire process in under 2 minutes and have it sent off to their buyer. Over 80% of buyers are able to finish their end of the deal in under 3 minutes. So in 5 minutes time, on average, an earnest money request can be sent and authorized, and the rest of the transaction can continue, all within dotloop.
That's a really efficient, effective intro to how we want to design, how we have designed our integration in dotloop. And with that said, what Russ talked about, that 5 minutes of total time, that's really the key from like the agent and buyer side, right? But also what Russ alluded to is really the core of who we are as the security. We are about to go past 90,000 transactions in our 4-year lifespan. And as Russ alluded to, we have never had an instance of fraud. We're very, very proud of that. That is a very secure, safe system that we're introducing to both you and your buyer. And it's also an efficient system. So with that said, let's jump right in. So if you're within your loop, for those of you that are brand new to this, where we live within the loop, as you can see here, I'm with an individual loop here, and this send earnest request, that's us. That button is what .loop put into the system, and when you click on it, that's where Earnnest takes over with our integration. So I'll illustrate that in just a moment. But first, I'm going to just show you here, if you're using .loop for the entirety of your transaction, and you've populated the details with the core pieces of information, like your buyer, the property address, and the earnest money amount, you see here that button is still living up here at the top of the request. All of this information will auto-generate, auto-pull into the integration that Earnnest has built. So when you go to the point of actually seeing the Earnnest property card, it should all be there for you. Let's go ahead and walk through this here. Little introduction, digitally transfer funds with Earnnest, a little bit about us, and then you can click continue. Now, if this was to be your brand new first time, you would have to go through a brief process where you'd go ahead and enter your first and last name, as well as your phone number and email. The only reason we collect that, guys, is just so that we can contact you. And this is where I'll put in a major plug for our support team. Earnnest has an excellent support team that is available 8 to 8 o'clock, 8 in the morning to 8 o'clock in the evening, Eastern Standard Time, Monday through Friday. We do not want you as individual agents having to concern yourselves when the buyer runs into some kind of bank error or even just needs to be walked through the technology. That's on us. That's a value add we provide. So we really want you guys to take advantage of it. So that's normally what you would do when you first click that button and go ahead and get yourself set up with Earnnest. All subsequent times, guys, you're going to get this email login. We recommend that you use your work email. And with that email login, you'll go ahead and get a 6-digit code, which I'm waiting for to come through here. Let me refresh this. There it is. There's my code, 879944. And these codes do expire after 5 minutes for security purposes. So if you ever walk away from your computer and forget about this and you come back and the code no longer works, you just missed the 5-minute mark, simply click the send button again and you'll go ahead and get a new code. Now here's the efficiency of the integration, guys. You can see this property card filling out automatically with all of the details that I inputted on my kind of fake details section. Now you notice I did not go ahead and put in the state. That's on me. And I did not go ahead and put in the zip code, so I'll just make up a zip code here. Otherwise, that also would have populated. Now here, the second section is who's receiving the payment. This is where all of BHHS Towns, all of their escrow accounts are sitting within Earnnest Network. They've gone through our secure vetting process and they are identified by unique searchable names. So once you went ahead and get this property information pulled in, the state acts as a filter. So when you start to search for your escrow holder, you're not going to be typing in like a Netflix search where everything pulls up right away. This search filter, as you start to look for your smart search name, is only pulling from escrow holders in the state of Virginia. And from there, it's going to very quickly eliminate down. You can see here, we're just by typing in the word town with an E, I'm able to quickly identify a number of accounts. And you could search by, the Lynn Haven or the Powell or the Smith or the New Homes and get an even narrower search window. But this is where you'll access your library. So I'll go ahead just today and say it's Harvard, UK. And then it will ask you to confirm that the above listed escrow holder is the one on the purchase contract. I'll go ahead and check that button. And then another really groundbreaking piece that our CRO alluded to in the video. Again, what's been one of the biggest obstacles around earnest money? You've got the fraud aspect, but you've also got the aspect of keeping everyone in the loop. Does everyone actually know when the earnest money went through? Well, we're going to keep the back office at BHHS Town, as well as you, as well as your buyer, all updated when that money is paid. And then we'll send out a second receipt to your back office as well as to your buyer when the money is deposited. So this keeps everybody automatically notified. And what that looks like, I'll stop here for just a moment. When this request is generated, an email that looks just like this will be sent out to your buyer. That's how they get introduced to Earnnest. And a second email will be sent out with the receipt information as soon as they go ahead and complete that transaction. That's real time. So going back to our dot loop integration here, only one more piece here. This is actually something, this last piece, that Tim and the team at BHHS Town asked us to add. And they were very patient. It took about 2 months, but we got this built into the integration, working with dot loop. And this is the last piece where you need to go ahead and acknowledge that you have a fully executed contract. What's been interesting about this for us is that we've had many clients in many other states reach out to us since we rolled this out and say, this was a really brilliant even ad that you guys had, because we had agents going ahead and sending out earnest money requests without having fully executed contracts. So thank you to Tim and team for pointing this out to us back in the day, because it's been useful for other organizations well beyond BHHS Town. But once you go ahead and acknowledge this, you're able to click the request button and send that secure digital earnest money request, folks. Now this is live, and I do not want to mess up the fine folks at Harborview Case, so I'm not going to do that to them today. But at this point, when you click send on this request, this is where, again, just for one more view for everybody, this is what is generated to the buyer. You can see here that all the pertinent details are put into the email template. They know who's requested it of them, the agent name, they know how much earnest money has been requested, and they know for what property. And then they will click on this secure portal here to begin interacting with the request. So I'm going to real quick stop sharing for just a moment, because I want to see how we're doing here, guys. Any questions so far, Haley? Doesn't look like it. Does anyone have any at this time?
I don't see any in the chat.
No problem at all. I'll keep right going on here then. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again. All right, well, there's the final piece. That's as simple as it is for your agents. But from the other side, what does the buyer go through? And our buyer process, as Russ acknowledged earlier, was about 3 minutes. We do emphasize the security to our process. There are many other folks out there in this business who will simply direct the buyers to either upload a check or in some cases just input their information into a web form and send it off. That's not what we're doing. We're actually going to have a 2-step process here. We're going to verify your buyer's identity in real time using our partner Dwala. And our second partner is Plaid. Plaid is the technology behind Chase. I mean, if you've used a payment platform that's digital in the last 2-3 years, there's a good chance Plaid was the power behind it. They do Zelle, for example, Venmo. The reason we use Plaid is Plaid allows us to, 1, connect automatically with over 80% of our bank accounts, and 2, it allows us to actually do a sufficient funds check at the moment the buyer is going to make the transaction. So before the buyer can go through and click pay, they have to pass a sufficient funds check. And that is the way we've reduced sufficient funds or insufficient funds instances by over 99%. With a traditional check, you're just sending it out there, and 4 to 5 business days later, it could very well bounce, possibly even a longer time period before it alerts you. With Earnnest, we're going to stop the buyer up front, reducing the possibility of that insufficient funds greatly. And then we'll have a second sufficient funds check that actually happens later on down the line. So we really do try to make sure that they have the money they need to complete the deal and make everyone's life easier. But that is all accomplished then through Plaid. So with that said, let me go ahead and show this video that will show you the entire buyer process.
Let's take a look at the buyer's journey as they complete their payment. The buyer will accept the request in their email. There is no sensitive information in the email. We introduce Earnnest to the buyer and share just a little about our security and transparency, and give your buyers access to our support team should they have any questions about paying their Earnnest money. The button in their email will direct them to a secure page where your buyer will go through a 2-step verification process. Once they create their account, they will review your request. Earnnest does not allow the buyer to edit or change any of the details of your request. Instead, if they find the details to be inaccurate, they will need to contact you for an updated payment request. If everything is correct, they will click "This is correct," which will lead them to the Buyer Hub. The Buyer Hub contains the details of the request, the buyer's name, the escrow holder, the earnest money amount, and a flat $15 processing fee to the buyer. There are 2 actions that the buyer will complete in the Buyer Hub. First, they will need to confirm their identity, and then they will connect their bank account. These 2 actions are what make Earnnest different from any other digital payment platform. We are verifying the buyer's identity in real time and confirming that they have sufficient funds to make the payment, protecting you and your buyer. The buyer will be prompted to select their online banking partner. Earnnest is connected to over 13,000 banks nationwide. If your buyer doesn't have online banking, they can manually enter their account and routing information. We never store or see the buyer's banking information. Using our secure system, Earnnest is completely removing the possibility of bounced checks, saving you valuable business days and a lot of headaches. Once your buyer's identity is confirmed and the proper amount of funds are available for payment, they can pay their earnest money.
All right, everyone, that is the overview of the Earnnest.loop integration, as well as how the buyer actually interacts with their side of it once the agent has completed that secure digital request. So at this time, I'd like to open it up for questions.
If anybody has any questions for Blaine or myself regarding company policies, we're happy to take them. I just want to reiterate, this does not replace your ability to collect a paper check from your client. However, this is the only way we take electronic funds. So there are no other wires accepted. We only accept electronic funds through the Earnnest application. And if your client doesn't want to pay the $15 and they would like to use a personal check or a money order, that is still accepted. Though there are those concerns that Blaine mentioned and why we've used Earnnest and chosen to use Earnnest over the year. 2 years now almost.
And one thing, Tim, you brought it to my mind as you were speaking. I did not mention, we talked about the advantages of Earnnest. I talked about the security. I talked about some of the additional benefits to you as the agent to the buyer. I didn't mention the speed. When we joined with BHHS 10, we were still moving at the traditional ACH movement rate. So a check, when it goes out and gets signed and gets cashed or gets sent in, that's going to be about 4 to 5 business days. The fastest speed it could possibly move would be 3 from the time of payment to deposit. Earnnest was on that same ACH railway, if you will. But we've been kind of aggressively pioneering and working with our providers to move faster. And now we got it down to 3 business days last year. And then as of right now, we're sitting at an average of 2 business days. And we believe sometime in the next 3 to 6 months, the vast bulk of our transactions will be at closer to 1 business day because of technologies like same day, which more and more banks are jumping in. All that to say, that's another big advantage, is that we are much faster than a check and getting faster every day.
All right. Thank you, Blaine. I don't think anybody has questions. I don't see anything in the chat. No one's unmuting, so I want to let you go early today. I appreciate your time, and we'll see you